Good evening, everyone. Today we are handling a subject that is very, very dear to my life. Many of you heard for years that any day I didn't read minimum 2-3 hours a day felt like a day I was sick. So today we'll be looking at how to read your way to wealth. If you ask me, this is the most important subject for everyone who is born in Africa, everyone who is born in the Caribbean, in the Pacific specifically. Why do I say this? Not that I'm racist like they will say, but I have had opportunity to work with people from different parts of the world, and sadly, Africans don't read. I'm just so sorry to make this kind of generalization, but sadly, Africans don't read. So I remember many times in the US, but I think it is changing too. I think it's changing because this generation of Americans, they don't read. They don't seem to read as much as the older generation. Their parents did. But I remembered a couple of years ago when I started going to the United States, if I was flying from, say, New York to San Diego, every single person, everybody had a fat book they were reading. There were book readings for the summer, and then you see everybody reading. But then when I see the few Africans in the plane, they are not the ones reading. They are not reading books. So we don't read as a people. And I'm telling you, the nations that read will always lead the nations that do not read. And it's exactly the same thing with individuals. Those who read will always lead those who don't read. Even though you might argue, okay, the kind of people, the politicians leading us in Africa and all that, they don't read, but they are leading us. No, they are not. Okay, so let's talk about how to read your way to wealth. And where best to start but my own personal story. I really want to, if there's anything I want to communicate very, very strongly to you today, and hopefully something you pass on very, very strongly to your children, is that reading changes things. Reading changes destinies. Type it in the comment section. Reading changes destiny. Reading changes destiny. Please type it in the comment section. And you see, the saddest thing about all this poor reading culture in Africa and maybe in the Pacific and in the Caribbean, the saddest thing about it is we now have these technologies that make it even worse. So you see, because we have Twitter, we have all these social media apps where, people can just type maybe a couple of words and things like that, and then string it together. I found that in the past 20 years, 25 years, people are finding it harder and harder to read longer materials and to read materials with some measure of difficulty. And then I look at the comments on posts that make sense on social media, Facebook, everywhere, and I look at the quality of comments. You can tell that there is zero comprehension, serious comprehension problems. I make a video, I state things as plainly and as rationally, as logically as I think it could be, that anybody could get it. And people will watch this video and then comment on something totally tangential to what I was talking about. So it's a very, very sad thing. And people can't connect to hard materials. And I'm wondering, what do people read in schools these days? In our time, we read all the classics. I remember we read Thomas Harding. We read, of course, the African Writers series, the Achebes, the Ngugi wa Thiong'o, and all these people. Zambia Shall Be Free, Kenneth Kaunda. We read voraciously. things fall apart. And then we read Shakespeare, many works of Shakespeare. Even in first year in secondary school, we remember reading at least like 12 works of Shakespeare, Midsummer Night's Dream, and all those. Then later we were reading Julius Caesar and all that. Hard materials. And what this did was develop our comprehension. But I look at this generation, the comprehension is scary. If you write it, they don't understand it. If you say it in video, they do not understand it. And all this because we have such a very, very poor reading culture. And it is scary what the future holds if we continue like this. Now, technology also makes it worse because I was talking with a parent the other time, just a few days ago, like last week. And then we were just reminiscing on how we used to do spelling tests and then spelling drills. And because of it, we were able to spell words correctly. But today, the children are not taught and they don't bother spelling because if you're typing, the software will be correcting that for you. I don't know who else is concerned about what I'm discussing. Our reading culture is low and it will continue to make us poor. Anyway, so back to my story. I graduated from the university in 1988 and I did my mandatory national service for a year, completed that in 1989. And there was no job. In fact, what happened was I lectured at the University of Maiduguri during my national service. And while I was lecturing, I wanted to go further from youth service to doing my postgraduate studies, my PhD doctorate in genetic engineering at the time. So I reached out to a university and got an admission to the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And they gave me admission. I applied for scholarship or for some kind of tuition waiver. I did not get that. I was supposed to work with a certain Professor Amos. And then we were supposed to domesticate the, what Nigerians call grass cutter. That was the project for my PhD. So that did not work out. So I found myself in Lagos without job and also without good accommodation. I was squatting with people in the slum. I can't describe, in fact, thinking back, it's like, how in the world did that even happen? So I found myself in this slum, like proper slum. The stench was horrible. The environment extremely dirty. There were always quarrels. People were breaking their heads. There were always molestations of young women, all kinds of drama every day, drunkenness, then the religious people, white garment people singing through the night. It was quite a life. So at some point I was like, is this how because 1 year there was no job, 1.5 years there was no job, almost 2 years I couldn't get job, and I was in this slum. It was such a gloomy situation. Now, I must have written over 100 applications at the time, which I would trek around the streets of Lagos, submitting to organizations to employ me. And I didn't get anything. And then the hunger was real because the people I stayed with in the slum were uneducated. And then they felt, yeah, you said you were going to school. Now you have your degree. You can't feed yourself, So it was like validation. They felt really good. And it was a very huge, very, very difficult time, for me. Now, so what I did, fortunately, close to Makoko, just a walking distance, must have been about 3 kilometers from the slum, we had this national library. For some of you who know Lagos, there was this national library at Alagomeji. I don't think that library exists anymore. So that place became my refuge. So I would escape there in the morning. I would read and read until they closed that library. And it was at this point that I now encountered this book. I can't even say how I found this book, written by John Maxwell, Your Attitude, Key to Success. That's what you're looking at right now on the screen. This book changed my life. So if you do not believe that a book can change, can transform your destiny, I am telling you, this book did it for me. I started devouring this book. Now, so what happened was, my body was in Makoko in the slum. But every day through the pages of this book, I was seeing possibilities. I was seeing myself in the United States. I was seeing myself traveling around Africa. I was seeing myself speaking to large audiences. That was in 1989, 1990. Through this book, I was dreaming. This book expanded my mind. Oh, it's not about my altitude. It's not about what I was going through. It wasn't about the poverty around me, the lack of job, the unemployment, the gloom, the dirty environment, the disempowering environment, community I found myself in. It's about my attitude, how I respond to it. That was the key message of this book. In other words, don't let your current circumstances determine, your emotional response. This book helped me because I was already seeing my life, as it were, like in the slum. But I kept refusing it. I said, no, this is not. I'm meant for more. I'm not meant for this slum. But you see, the danger of environment is that you begin to see, you begin to absorb the environment, and if you're not very careful, you find yourself just absorbing the environment, and then the environment soon absorbs you. Because I still remember there was a young girl that I took a liking to at that time, Fatima. I just liked this girl, and and then I think if I had stayed maybe one more year in that environment, I probably would have maybe I probably would have married that girl, and then we'd still be living in Makoko today. But the book saved my life. This book saved my life. So let me just make this very clear. You might just be one book away from your breakthrough. But the reason you have to keep reading is that you don't know which book. But for me, this book did it. And then before this book, by the way, I have another origin story. See, my father was a teacher. The teachers of those days, the teachers of the 1950s, 1960s, they are not like the teachers we have today. Those people, they were something else. And then if you grew up under a headmaster, you will know what I'm talking about, the kind of discipline, the kind of regimented house it was. I had to wake up at a certain time, sweep the compound at a certain time, go to the village stream 3 times in the day, 3 times to fetch water. I had to have siesta, compulsory siesta. I had to finish homework. That was the family I grew up in. And thank God for my father. God bless him, So now, but this was the book that started shaping my worldview, that shaped who I am today. And I read this book as soon as I started reading, because my father, that's another gift from my father. I think I have to make a video on that one again. Another gift from my father was instilling in me the love of books. I just make a note of that. I need to do a video on that, because I think that's a gift every father should give their son and their daughter, the love of books. My father instilled the love of books in me, and he had a very rich library. I still remember tropical science. I still remember geography books. I still remember the biographies that my father had. And I saw this one, Makers of Civilization. It was 3 volumes, volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. I've never seen this book anywhere since that time. But as soon as I learned to read, I started reading this book. Now, this book had in it the biographies of all the people who were regarded as makers of civilization. So I remember reading about the explorers, about the scientists. So there was Vasco da Gama there. And I was so taken by Vasco da Gama that, in fact, in primary school, I took up the nickname Vasco da Gama. It was because of what I read in the book. And then I remember reading about James Stevenson. I remember reading about, Marie Curie? Many of these people, as a 7, 8, 9-year-old, I read these things. Ladies and gentlemen, what I am today, came from the exposure I had to reading. Because even though I grew up in a village, we never had electricity. Throughout my schooling, from nursery to university, my village never had electricity. So I read with bush lamp. So many times you guys don't even know who this guy talking to you on social media is. You just think that somehow I just sprang up, and then became this thing that you see that everybody, is kind of thankful for. It was throughout primary, secondary, university. I read with bush lamp. But in that bush village, that was never on the map until just recently, where I come from, I was reading this book and I was seeing empires. I was seeing the world. I was dreaming, which is why you need to expose your children to books more than you do to television. Because what this thing did for me was, as I was reading, it was forming my imagination. So because what television does for you is that image is already canned for you and delivered to you. But in my own case, reading, I was seeing America in my imagination. I was seeing Europe. I was seeing all this in my imagination through books. In fact, let me go back to what happened in Makoko while I was there and I was reading this book. So there were about 6 people squatting in that room. Tiny room, dingy, with molds and moisture all over the place. It was terrible. But you see, I was lying down in that dirty room. My body was there, but my imagination saw me traveling to the United States, to Europe, to Asia, to different places. My imagination saw me traveling to the Caribbean. My imagination saw the kind of woman I was going to marry and the children I was going to raise and how we were going to be great. But my body was lying down in this dirty room, in the slum, with the stench all over the place. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It only took a few years. And then my body rose from Makoko slum to meet my imagination, to meet my spirit where it had been. So today, I go to America like I'm going to the bathroom. Today, I have been to the London. Today, I have been to these African countries and I still go there. All because I read a book. And I hope my story, even if I end here tonight, I hope this story has done something for you. You have YouTube, you have all these other sources of education. Thank goodness they are there. But these things will never take the place of books. They will never take the place of books. Okay, so now King Solomon saw this. I always refer to King Solomon. He lived 3,000 years ago. And he's sort of my role model. I learned a lot from him, both from his mistakes and from his rich wisdom. Solomon said, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. And he said, in all you're getting, get understanding. In all you're getting, get understanding. So many people are busy trying to acquire all kinds of material things, acquire cars, acquire iPhone, acquire whatever, those things. No problem. Acquire Rolex watches and all those things. Look at the things that people are running after. It's so childish on social media. Watch, car, iPhone 21, and all that. Not a problem. But he says, look, in all you're getting, get understanding. It's better that you sell your Rolex and buy books. That's what Solomon is saying. Because one idea from a book, the understanding you get from a book, can get you 1,000 Rolex watches. But the moment you get that your Rolex whatever, that's it. So he said, exalt understanding and wisdom. She will promote you. Look at what he says. It will bring honor when you embrace her. She will place on your head an ornament of grace. A crown of glory she will deliver to you. Reading has taken me to places Reading has changed my life. Reading has also helped me to change the lives of people. Do you know how many of you send me messages privately every day? Every day, my DM is filled with people who say, since I started following you, my life has been transformed. How much money can you pay me for that? How much money? One of you from Burundi reached out to me this afternoon, and I communicated with you. And then you were talking about how my page, you stumbled on my page, and how my page has so helped you and challenged you, and you want more. I'm getting it from Burundi. I'm getting it from. If I open my message, I can't even attend to all the WhatsApp messages, ladies and gentlemen. And then you listen to the quality of the content I put out there. You watch the video. It feels different, doesn't it? Say so. Say so in the comment section. And even what you're listening to right now, it feels different, doesn't it? That's what Solomon was talking about here, because I invest so much in wisdom. I invest so much in understanding. My asset, I usually tell people 75-80% of my house is books all over the place, and I tell you, it pays. There's no amount of money you can pay me for the gratitude I feel for seeing lives change, for seeing somebody, a young woman, writing me to say, oh, the things you talked about, I never knew about it. My father did not tell me, but now I'm going to change because I've giving people hope. Someone writes and tells me, I lost hope. I wanted to kill myself, but I read something you posted and I decided, no, I'm not going to do it. How much money? How many billions of dollars can you pay for one life like that saved? So wisdom is fantastic. It's great. And then when you have it, you will have the riches. But when you have the things, and then you don't have wisdom, you don't have understanding, you don't have anything. Okay, now, reading opens doors to new opportunities. How does it do that? Because it changes your perspective. I mean, there are 1,001 examples, of things you read. I'm reading a book written by Jamie Winship recently. And some of you may have seen even my recent content. I've been talking about identity. This book just blew my mind. And then it was my young niece in America, when we went to America a few months ago. And then she said to me, Uncle, this book is so good. This book is really good, that this man came to speak to us and all that. So Jamie Winship's book just totally changed my perspective. It has built my family, because now everybody in my family, I've shared it. I've even shared it in some of my coaching works. It's just opened my mind to new ideas, and it's created incredible opportunities for growth, personal growth for me, because that book opened my eyes to how powerful it is to understand your identity, who you are. I became more intentional. I had known about it before, but now I became more intentional in functioning in my identity. It's a book. Number 2, it's a habit of successful people. The world's top leaders, billionaires. Warren Buffett tells how much he reads. Bill Gates talks about how he reads like 50 books every year. So they gain the knowledge to stay ahead, because things are constantly evolving. The world is constantly changing. Ray Diallo, all of them, everybody talks about reading. And then my own friend, Patu, told me, you will never catch him without a book. So once when I went to South Africa and I was coming back, it's like, what do I buy for Professor Tommy? The answer was, it was very easy. I just bought him a book and gave him, and he appreciated it. So it's a habit of successful people. Reading empowers the underprivileged. What the poor people need is not the so-called palliative. Even though the poor people think that what they need is food. But if these people can read, if you can encourage these people to read, maybe instead of buying all that, little rice and putting Maggi cubes or whatever inside, or gari and sugar that you politicians package for poor people, build libraries. Chances are that if you actually build the libraries, that one day they might stroll in there. Or if they don't go in there, maybe one day a little boy might stroll in there, read something that can change that community. Reading is true empowerment. It's true empowerment. So if you're a governor, or your brother is a governor, or whatever, government official, local government chairman, and all that. Tell these people to bring back reading culture. We will change our communities. Okay, so reading also for personal development helps you to build critical skills for success. Reading is so critical for building critical skills. You can tell the way people who don't read, they're sloppy, they don't take initiative, they don't know what to do. But a reader, you're talking in the presence of a reader, even the way the person opens his or her mouth to communicate, because reading changes the way you communicate. It improves your communication skills. Why? Because reading builds your vocabulary. It also enhances your comprehension, like I said before. And then the ability to communicate your ideas effectively. You see a lot of people who don't read. When they try to explain things to you or to tell you something, they can't even, just hear, that's this thing, what do they call it? You are not a reader. Because if you read, you'll be able to communicate. You'll find the words and the vocabulary. And then research has been done to show that the bigger and better your vocabulary, the more you earn. By the way, if at this point you've not already shared it, because that's something I take it for granted that you've already shared, please share this. Don't you think that everyone needs to hear what you're hearing? Share it to your community. I'm not charging you for this. This is the least you can do. So take a moment, share it, and then type in the comment section, shared. Very good. Very good. Now, so reading also helps, it boosts your problem-solving abilities. Because books, by its very nature, encourages critical thinking. Because if you're reading, you're automatically forcing your brain to do some critical thinking. And then when you're reading, you see diverse solutions to problems. And then reading develops leadership qualities. There is no one who is a true leader who does not read. You can take that to the bank. Okay, so now reading is also a gateway to wealth. I started my career, like many of you know, in Shell, later in Chevron, and then back to Shell. So I had a very good run, for career, working in incredible organizations. But I was poor. I wasn't managing money very well. So all that money went away. I was not financially free. Now this thing continued until in 2003, late 2003. I chanced by this book you're seeing on the screen. That's the book that brought my financial deliverance. Because I used to wonder, why is it that money was never enough? I was paid a lot. The salary was a lot. But the family was still lacking finances. And then it was embarrassing that my wife would be looking for money to buy fuel, to fuel her car. And the money was not there. For someone earning, I was like top 0.1% earning in the whole country by what I was paid in Chevron and in Shell. Until I now read this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. If you have not read it, that's the one I want you to pick up tomorrow morning, first thing tomorrow morning, and start reading. Make your children read this book like I did. Make them read this book. This book was my gateway to financial freedom. This very book totally rewired my understanding about wealth. I used to think that, just go to school, come out, get a good job, keep managing things, send your children to school. But I found that there was much more than that. And then very powerful revolutionary concepts that he shared in the book. He said the rich, the poor work for money, but the rich make money work for them. That was totally transformational for me. So I discovered that I was actually poor because I was working for my money, working for it, every month, 24th of every month. Then I'll be waiting for Chevron's credit alert for the salary. But reading this book was my gateway to wealth. Everything changed from there. All right, so let's do the how to. How do you start reading? Let's talk about practical steps for you. So maybe I've appropriately evangelized you today, and then you said, all right, how do we start? Where do we begin? So let me talk about that. Then I'll share some things you can start reading. So start with topics you enjoy. So find books on subjects that interest you. Anything that make reading enjoyable. Just start with with good ones. There's some hard books that I have read, because sometimes it's good that you actually read books with difficult subject, because your brain also needs books with difficult subjects. So one of such books I had read was the book written by Saint Augustine of Hippo. My goodness, that book is tough. You can't, you'll sweat your brain. Every word will sweat your brain. And it's very good sometimes to read books, with such difficulty. But start with topics that you enjoy. All right. So if you enjoy reading about travel, start with books around travel. If you enjoy reading about the culture of different people in the world, if you enjoy reading about the foods, Indian food, Chinese food, you have interest in food, French foods people cook in Ghana, foods eaten in Southern Africa. Now that I said that, I didn't know that Southern Africans don't take as much pepper as we do in West Africa. So because we've had occasions to have a conference or events where our brothers and sisters came from Southern Africa and they couldn't stand our food. And even though the pepper was not much, but they were suffering. And so we ended up having to cook without the pepper in that place so that they could eat. So if that is your interest, read books, find books on that subject and start reading. Then you want to set a daily reading goal. So that's really very helpful. Okay, set a daily reading goal. If you start with a book like As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, you might say, okay, every morning when you wake up, you can read a chapter before you go. I also read the Bible a lot, like every day. And I want to say, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're Christian or not, that book is not a religious book. People make it a religious book. That book, like Miles Monroe clearly taught us, that's another guy that I read, that it's the Constitution. It's a constitution, but people have made it a religious book, such that some people even put it under their pillow to sleep so that they will not have bad dreams. That's magic. That is magic. That is occult. That's not what that book is. That book is able to make you wise. I read it every day, not in a religious sense, but I read it to actually find out more about who I am, find out more about who God is, find out more about who my fellow man is. And then the more I read it, the more I discover that we are all connected. We are just the ones dividing ourselves. Christian, Muslim, white man, black man, Jewish man, European, and all that. We are all connected. So it's a very fantastic book to read. And so you can say the book of Proverbs has 31 chapters. And I dare you, that's where I want people, I encourage people to start their reading experience. So every day you read one chapter. That book, if you can do it, there have been young people I told to do that in the past. Just read the book of Proverbs written by Solomon, the king. And after 31 days, things will shift in the way you think. Things will shift in your relationship. Things will shift in your career. Things will shift everything around you, the way you perceive the world. Okay, so set daily reading goal. You can start with the book of Proverbs, one chapter a day. Okay, then leverage free resources. I'm going to give you one where you can find up to 10 million books or more. So I use it. That's where I find very old books. So many times I read old books. I read the old books written, like some written by Benjamin Franklin in 1750s. I read those books and I'm amazed at how very little the world has changed. So I remember reading one of his books and people were complaining in 1753 about inflation Would you believe that? People were complaining in 1753, and they said that the price of bread had gone so high, and people were complaining we will not be able to afford it again. 1753. 1753, how many years ago? How would I even have known that if I don't read? Anyway, so I'll give you that place where you can find these old books. You still find books written in 1912, 1911, 18th century. You'll find all those books. Serious wisdom. Serious wisdom. In fact, there's no problem that you have in you're dealing with right now that somebody has not written about. You can type that in the comment section. I don't want you to forget that. There's no problem that you're solving right now that somebody has not solved and written about it. Type it in the comment section. There is no problem you're solving right now that somebody has not solved and written about it. You are just lazy to go and find out, what they've written about and to apply that. In recent days, the women have been, attacking me. They've been on my case on Facebook about divorce. Is it divorce? Are you the first person to have divorce or to suffer? Are you the first person having relationship difficulty? No way. Are you the first person experiencing career stagnation? No way. People have gone through it, overcome it, and written about it for you. Just go, find the book, read it, and come out of it. There's nothing new. There's nothing you are going through that is new. So again, let me say it again. There's no challenge, no problem, no struggle you are going through right now that someone has not had, overcome, and written about it, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Okay, now, so this is that site I'm talking about. It's https archive.org. You will find books unimaginable. You can start reading there. Sometimes I'm actually alone in the house for 2 good days, and I've done it 3 days. The neighbors were were concerned, and because I was away from home, and then they wanted to call my wife to say, I hope everything is okay. We've not seen your husband for 3 days because of places like this, books like this. And then once I start, so once the reading habit bites you, you cannot escape it again. It's so sweet. You just start reading and then you don't stop. So archive.org, you can find all types of books there. You can also find at Scribd, SCRIBD, but that one is paid for. But this one is free. So you can go there. Now, so what can you read? What can you read? So there are a few suggestions here that you can start with. And these are books I regularly suggest that you start with. Okay? So there is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That book, I don't know how many times I've read it. So read it. There's also the audio version that you can find on YouTube. But it's good. You read it and also listen to it. Then there is Marriage Takes More Than Love, whether you are married or not. Because a lot of people are carrying so much junk, just like if a couple of few days now have proven from all the reactions and posts people are putting on my, this, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's like this generation has no idea what marriage is about. They think it's just an experiment, something you get into, experiment, then get out if that experiment is not working. So this book will help. Marriage Takes More Than Love. It helps for relationship. This one, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, is a classic. Anytime, any day is a classic. Because what many of us do not realize is that there's a very huge linkage between how we think and between our destiny. So someone said, I'm thinking it's the same James Allen. He said, you sow a thought, you reap a habit. You sow habit, you reap character. You sow character, you reap destiny. So you see how powerful your thoughts are and why you need to Always feed your mind the right thing. So that book is powerful. It helps. For me, it's probably like one of my top 10 success books, As a Man Thinketh. Then The Greatest Salesman in the World by Ogmandino. That one is a must read for like every business person or someone who has side hustle. That book can change your life. The Alchemist is fantastic. Okay, there's another book I need to put here. I think I forgot to put it, but it's called The Four Agreements. The Four Agreements. Just type it. Fantastic book. I was traveling from Zurich to Los Angeles the year I got to know about that book. And then I had this gentleman sitting by me. We were in the business class. So, and then we just got talking, because there's something that happens with readers. If you're a reader here, you can confirm what I'm telling you. There's something that happens with readers and writers. They easily, like you're traveling in a flight like that or something, they meet each other and then they strike conversations. There's nothing as rich as readers exchanging views, having a conversation. You never have enough of each other. Is anybody there? Can you confirm if you're a reader? When you are talking with another reader, it's so sweet. So this man, it was from this man that I learned about the Four Agreements. He asked me, have you read the Four Agreements by Don Miguel? I said, no. He said, no, you need to read the book. Well, as soon as I landed in Los Angeles, I was going to San Ramon. As soon as I landed, I ordered that book. And the man was right. And I don't know how many times I've read this book, recommended it. Everyone in the family have recommended it. My wife has read it a couple of times. So the Four Agreements. So someone can type in the comment section so that you'll remember. Okay, so this is where we will end it today. And I hope that you have been inspired, not just to double up on your own reading as a person, but also to encourage your children, encourage your co-workers, encourage everyone to read around you, encourage your so-called leaders, politicians, because when we do, we will definitely change everything around us. All right, so till this same time tomorrow, my name is Ogbo, Awoke Ogbo. Whatever happens, keep reading, and keep showing up, because you never know what's coming your way next. And I'll see you same time tomorrow. Bye for now.